Have you ever felt that crushing moment when you realize you've been giving everything to a man who treats you like you're completely replaceable? You know that sinking feeling when you've poured your heart, your time, your energy into someone only to watch him grow more distant with each passing day. Maybe you've experienced that particular kind of torture where the harder you try, the more he seems to slip away, leaving you wondering what you did wrong and why you're never quite enough. Imagine this scenario. You've been the perfect girlfriend, the understanding partner, the woman who always makes time for him no matter what. You've forgiven his coldness, rationalized his mixed signals, and turned his smallest gestures into proof that he cares. You've given him second chances, third chances, maybe even 10th chances, all while feeling like you're slowly disappearing in the relationship. You're constantly walking on eggshells, trying to figure out what will finally make him see your worth, what will finally make him choose you completely. But here's what no one tells you about this exhausting cycle. Every time you chase him after he pulls away, every time you over-explain your feelings, every desperate attempt to prove how much he means to you, you're actually feeding something inside him that will never love you back. You're inflating his ego, and an inflated ego doesn't love. It only enjoys the power it has over your submission. Today, you're going to discover a truth so powerful it will completely transform how you approach relationships with men forever. This isn't about playing games or becoming someone you're not. This is about understanding the deepest psychology of the male mind and using that knowledge from a position of absolute strength. What I'm about to share with you has the power to make any man think about you constantly, crave your attention with an intensity that surprises even him, and pursue you with an urgency he can't explain. The secret lies in understanding something most women never grasp about the male ego. While women long to be admired and respected for their accomplishments, men operate on a completely different system. At their deepest core, they crave to feel unique, irreplaceable, and chosen. They want selective attention, constant confirmation of their attractiveness and power, and yes, often emotional control over the relationship. Inside every seemingly confident man is a recognition-hungry boy desperate for validation. Every gesture of admiration you give him feeds this hunger. Every hint of neediness from you inflates his ego even more. That's exactly why the game loses its charm when you become predictable, when he knows exactly how you'll respond to his behavior. But here's where it gets interesting, and here's where your greatest power lies hidden. This apparent strength of his ego is actually his greatest weakness and your most strategic opportunity. The brutal truth is this: if you continue being his predictable source of admiration and security, if you keep serving validation to him on a silver platter like most women do, you'll remain trapped in this cycle forever. But the moment you interrupt that constant stream of validation he expects, the moment you stop being his emotional mirror, something incredible happens. You leave him in emotional darkness, and this vacuum awakens an urgent need in him to regain that special feeling you've subtly taken away. Think about the most intense attraction you've ever felt. Was it for someone who was completely available, who made their feelings crystal clear from day one? Or was it for someone who kept you guessing? Someone who made you work for their attention? The human brain, and especially the male brain, links challenge with value. What's easy to get simply can't be that valuable. That's how his subconscious works. Most women make the fatal mistake of thinking that showing endless love and devotion will eventually win a man's heart. They believe that if they just prove how good they are, how much they care, how perfect they could be together, he'll finally see their worth. But this approach backfires spectacularly, because it removes all mystery, all challenge, all reason for him to invest emotionally. When you chase him, when you make yourself constantly available, when you react with panic every time he creates distance, you're essentially telling him that he already has you completely. And once a man believes he has you for certain, once he feels secure in his power over you, his interest begins to fade. It's not personal, it's psychological. The chase is over, and with it, the excitement dies. But what if you could flip this entire dynamic? What if, instead of being the one who chases you, became the one being pursued? What if you could make him feel that same desperate need to win your attention that you've been feeling for him? The answer lies in 3 powerful psychological principles that most women never learn: emotional scarcity, strategic silence, and calculated withdrawal. Before I reveal exactly how to apply these game-changing principles, I need you to do something that will transform not just this relationship, but every relationship you'll ever have. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to share is the exact step-by-step method that has helped thousands of women go from being taken for granted to being completely irresistible. Don't let this life-changing information slip away. Subscribe now and prepare to see a side of male psychology that will shock you. The first principle, emotional scarcity, works because men don't obsess over what's easily available to them. They become consumed by what feels just out of reach. When you're always there, always understanding, always ready to forgive and forget, you eliminate the very thing that creates attraction: uncertainty. Your job is to become emotionally scarce without becoming cold or cruel. This means showing interest but never desperation. It means being warm when you're together but never sacrificing your own life for his schedule. It means letting him know he fascinates you but never that you need him to feel complete. The moment you master this balance, you become infinitely more attractive because you represent something he can't fully possess or control. Imagine this scenario. He sends you a vague message, one of those texts that could mean anything, perhaps just to test your reaction. The average woman responds with uncertainty, seeks explanations, asks for clarity. A confident woman, on the other hand, pulls back. You might leave the message unanswered for a long time or respond briefly, neutrally, without any trace of neediness, not out of childish pride, but from emotional strength. Reaction, or rather the absence of one, destroys his entire strategy. He expected your fear, but got indifference. He hoped you'd bite, but you didn't even notice the bait. And that completely throws him off because it means he doesn't have the power over you that he thought he had. The second principle, strategic silence, is perhaps the most powerful weapon in your arsenal. Your silence, that deliberate, controlled silence, can destroy a man's entire strategy for maintaining emotional control over you. When he acts distant, hoping you'll chase him, when he expects you to seek explanations for his behavior, your silence becomes deafening. It isn't about being rude or playing childish games. This is about responding from a place of strength rather than fear. When you don't react the way he expects, when you don't bite the bait he's dangling, you completely throw him off balance. Suddenly he realizes he doesn't have the power over you that he thought he had, and this realization can drive him crazy with curiosity and desire. Silence holds a power that words can never reach. When he's used to your constant voice, your explanations, your predictable presence, your sudden withdrawal creates a deafening void. And in that void, his mind fills with questions, doubts, and eventually obsession. This sense of uncertainty, not provoked by him, but deliberately created by you, disrupts his power pattern. It knocks him off balance. It forces him to reconnect with you emotionally. Because suddenly, with a sharp sting to his ego, he feels he could lose you for no clear reason. And this very feeling of an imminent and unexplained loss can destroy him internally, emotionally. It makes him think about you constantly. And paradoxically, he begins to desire you more than ever before. The third principle, calculated withdrawal, is where the real magic happens. This is about strategically removing your emotional presence exactly when he expects more from you. It's about ending conversations at their peak, leaving when the connection feels strongest, being the one who creates space instead of always trying to close it. This calculated withdrawal forces him to face the possibility of losing you, and that possibility awakens something primal in his brain. When you master the art of strategic withdrawal, you're no longer reacting to his moods or dancing to his rhythm. Instead, you're setting the pace of the relationship. You decide when there's closeness and when there's distance. You determine the emotional temperature, and this shift in power confuses him so deeply that he can't help but become obsessed with regaining control. But here's what makes this approach so devastatingly effective. You're not withdrawing out of anger or spite. You're withdrawing from a place of absolute calm and self-possession. You're not punishing him. You're simply redirecting your energy toward yourself and your own growth. This type of withdrawal is magnetic because it comes from strength, not weakness. Imagine this scenario. He's been distant lately. Maybe he's been taking hours to respond to your messages or making vague plans that never materialize. The old you would have panicked, would have sent longer messages trying to reconnect, would have made yourself even more available to win back his attention. But the new you, the woman who understands male psychology, does something completely different. You simply step back, not dramatically, not with explanations or ultimatums, but with quiet dignity. You focus on your own life, your own goals, your own happiness. You go out with friends. You pursue your interests. You invest in yourself as if you were your most important project. And you do all of this without announcing it, without trying to make him jealous, without seeking his validation for your choices. This behavior is so unexpected, so different from what he's used to, that it creates a seismic shift in his perception of you. Suddenly, you're not the predictable woman who revolves around his moods. You're not the safe option he can take for granted. You've become something far more dangerous to his ego, a woman who doesn't need him to feel complete. The psychological impact of this transformation cannot be overstated. When a man realizes that a woman he thought he had figured out is actually thriving without him, when he sees that her life doesn't just continue but flourishes in his absence, something breaks inside him. His ego, which has been comfortably fed by your attention, suddenly goes into crisis mode. He starts asking himself questions that torture him. Did I misjudge her? Has she stopped caring about me? Is she moving on? Has someone else captured her attention? These questions become a constant presence in his mind, and that constant mental presence is the beginning of obsession. But the real power move comes when you continue to elevate yourself during this period of withdrawal. Every day you invest in becoming a better version of yourself. Every moment you spend building your own happiness and success creates an even wider gap between who you were when you were chasing him and who you are now. This visible transformation hits him harder than any argument or confrontation ever could. When he sees you glowing with confidence, when he witnesses you living fully without him, when he realizes that other people are drawn to this new energy you're radiating, his ego takes a hit that forces him to confront reality. He begins to understand that he didn't just lose a woman who was desperate for his attention, he lost a prize that he was too blind to appreciate. Every relationship, even the most chaotic, eventually falls into routine, a predictable choreography. He does something, you react, and the game repeats until it becomes boring or distant. Your job is to break this choreography suddenly and boldly. When you suddenly break out of the usual rhythm, when you stop dancing to his music, he loses emotional control over the situation. And almost inevitably, he begins to dance to your rhythm, to the beat that you set with your strategic indifference and your inner strength. This realization creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. His brain struggles to reconcile the image he had of you as someone who needed him with the reality of you as someone who clearly doesn't. This mental conflict is deeply uncomfortable, and the only way to resolve it is by winning back your attention, by proving to himself that he still matters to you. The beauty of this approach is that by the time he reaches this point of desperation, you've already moved to a completely different level of self-awareness and personal power. You're no longer the woman who is willing to accept crumbs of attention. You've become someone who knows her worth and won't settle for anything less than genuine appreciation and respect. When he does reach out, and he will, you respond from this new place of strength. You're pleasant but not eager, interested but not desperate, open but not available on demand. This version of you is infinitely more attractive than the woman who used to chase him, because this version comes from a place of choice, not need. The man who once took you for granted suddenly finds himself in the unfamiliar position of having to win your attention. He has to prove his worth to you instead of the other way around. He has to demonstrate that he deserves a place in your elevated life. This role reversal is so psychologically powerful that it often creates the very obsession and devotion you are seeking all along. When you finally take full control of your emotions and stop craving attention as if it were necessary for survival, something magical happens, almost like alchemy. He begins to feel, with a mix of frustration and fascination, that you are the only woman he cannot control emotionally, the one who doesn't fall for his usual tricks. And that drives him crazy because in his mind, being perhaps used to dominating women or wrapping them around his finger, he controls everyone except you. And that very loss of control robs him of inner peace. It creates a consuming restlessness. That restlessness, that unresolved tension, is exactly what links him to you obsessively. You become a riddle he can't solve, a song he can't get out of his head, a thought that haunts him before falling asleep and is right there again when he wakes up. A man can resist your most eloquent words, your most logical arguments, but he cannot ignore the emotional vacuum you create with your strategic absence. Your calculated indifference hits him deeper than any explanation. Don't punish him with anger. Don't scream your frustration at him. Don't explain your new strategy. That would be like betraying yourself. Just disappear strategically from his emotional radar. But here's the most important part of this entire transformation. By the time you've mastered these principles, by the time you've developed this level of emotional strength and self-possession, whether or not he becomes obsessed with you becomes almost irrelevant. You've discovered something far more valuable than any man's attention. You've found your own unshakable power. You've learned that your worth doesn't fluctuate based on someone else's interest level. You've discovered that your happiness doesn't depend on external validation. You've realized that the most attractive thing about you isn't your willingness to chase someone who doesn't appreciate you. It's your ability to walk away from anyone who doesn't recognize your value. This is the ultimate paradox of attraction. The moment you stop needing someone's obsession is often the moment you become truly irresistible. When you're genuinely happy with or without him, when you're building a life so fulfilling that his presence becomes a nice addition rather than a desperate necessity, you become the kind of woman men dream about but rarely encounter. Remember one crucial thing. You don't have to force anything or beg anyone for attention. The real magic, the real power lies in being emotionally desired, in being the woman who with wisdom and strategy leaves just enough space for him to feel the potential loss, the absence of your value. That is exactly what automatically triggers the desire in him. He begins to question his own behavior. He starts to seek you, to need you, and all of that without you taking even the slightest visible step toward him. The transformation I've just described isn't just theory, it's a proven psychological principle that has worked for countless women who were brave enough to step away from patterns that weren't serving them. But I want to hear from you because your story matters. In the comments below, tell me, what's the biggest mistake you've made in trying to win a man's attention? What pattern do you need to break in your own life? Share your experience because your vulnerability might be exactly what another woman needs to hear to change her own life. Your comment could be the catalyst that helps someone else discover their own power. Don't hold back. This community is here to support each other's growth and transformation.